at number two, I think the number two player, it's fluctuated over the last couple of years. I think a couple of years ago, you take Trae Young here. In the bubble, after the bubble, you have Ayton here with that great bubble playoffs. And I have been defending Jamal Murray over this guy, but I think at number two, you got to take Shea after an all first team NBA season. Looking at the Sacramento roster, I mean, they had, shout out Frank Mason III, Rock Chalk Jayhawk. I mean, they had Fox, who I think they drafted the year before, or yeah, he was drafted in 2017. So yeah, he was drafted the year before. And so that's chances are why they didn't want to go with guard. So, I think they most likely, similar to the Suns at one, they were drafting for need here. They, didn't really want to get someone to, I guess, clog up the backcourt. And, now they're dealing. They've had a great run, but it was a pretty low valley, before that. And you look at teams like the Cavs this past, with them deciding to draft Darius Garland, even though they have Colin Sexton. And now you see where it ends up, where Garland is a solid guard who they can have for a while and eventually kick out Sexton. So it's again going back to draft on talent, not on need. And when they both meet up, when it works, that's great. But at the same time, I think a little bit hinting to this year's draft between Scoot and Brandon Miller. You just draft on the best guy out there who you think is the best guy, and the rest will figure itself out. Especially when you're not a good team like the Kings were. Were at that point.
Shea's definitely the right pick. 31 points a game this year, 4.8 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 51% from the field. The only guards to score 30 points a game and do it on 50% from the field are MJ, Gerving, Steph, and Shea this past year. MJ and Shea both did it at 24 years as well. The defense also goes underrated with him. He was fourth in steals per game this year, over a steal and a half a game. See, when he's locked in, he can obviously be a good defender. And there are 4 All-Stars in this draft, 3 guys that have been on All-NBA. Him and Luka are the only first-team All-NBA guys in this draft. So Luka is, clearly the number one looking back, clearly the top guy, clearly like the LeBron of this draft. But I do think Shea has a chance to be like kind of the Dwayne Wade to Luka's LeBron, where, Dwayne Wade in those early Miami years, like, came into the league and he won the title before LeBron did, got that ring, the 05, 06 season. He also did it as like a slasher type player, mid-range, free throw kind of guy, kind of the way Shea plays as well. Where, you look at Shea's situation, you look at how Oklahoma City set up compared to Dallas right now. And again, Luka is the top guy, but Shea, I think he's in that, I think, like Tatum realm, where I think he could be like, is he scratching the surface of taking your team to a title? And if he got into the playoffs, got the right team around him, got hot, I do think, with that Oklahoma City situation, there's a world where Shea is like the first guy out of this draft to lead his team to a title. I wouldn't be shocked if Shea was like the first finals MVP out of this draft.
Oh wow, that's a hot take. So in the 2018 draft with Luka Doncic in it, you wouldn't be surprised if Shea would win the first Finals MVP. I mean, right now his team is definitely better set up for a sustained long run. I mean, they just made a trade yesterday with the Nuggets to kick some of their picks down the road. And I think don't they have 20 plus draft picks somewhere there? So they literally can't draft all the players that they have for picks for it. I mean, it's just the team wouldn't hold it. So, but yeah, no, I think when you look at his draft profile, some comparisons to DeJounte Murray, Ron Harper, but something that we've seen a trait for players who have really excelled is being able to put in that work. And Calipari mentioning his heart, that he was the hardest worker, the most coachable player, and that he's had to put in a lot of extra work because of being coming into the league with a small frame. He was long and tall, but pretty only 180 pounds. Could easily get pushed around, but we've seen him put in those hours, put in that work, and develop into a legit number one option for a playoff team. And we could see what he develops, like we've mentioned earlier with Jokic. Obviously any great player needs some teammates around him. So with Chet Holmgren coming back, Josh Giddey, continuing to develop, his other team is continuing to develop, and whatever they can bring with those picks. It'll be interesting to see how it does play out in the next couple of years, because like you mentioned, I mean, if they're able to have these other players around them continue to develop into contributing players, and we've seen them be a competitive team, even when they're supposed to shut it down, they continue to fight to win games. So we can see that they got that dog in them. So we'll see. I think they are a very interesting team, and they're probably one or two pieces away, unless Chet Holmgren turns into a really superstar. But outside of that, I think despite them being one or two pieces away, they're definitely in a much better position than the Mavs are, especially if the Mavs aren't able to bring back Kyrie and now lose that asset. It's going to be a real headache in Dallas if they can't bring back Kyrie, who has been known to be a headache as a player himself.
Yeah, we'll see how the Kyrie thing eventually plays out and what the final end of just that asset ends up being. But that's really the move that I think is, put this Mavs roster in a really tough spot going forward. So that's really the thing. It's like if Luka is in Dallas and Shea is in OKC, I think that OKC roster might be actually closer if we're just going like 7 years, the moves they can make, the young talent, they have the picks, maybe they go get another superstar. So, it might take Luka leaving Dallas to find a better basketball situation and
Better front
get a
office.
chance to compete. But maybe that's down the road. But I wouldn't be shocked if Shea was taking a team to the finals, hoisting that trophy, being the first guy to do it in the draft. So what a miss by the Kings here. Bagley was the original pick at number 2. Luka was still on the board, and they made the pick with 1:04 left on the clock for Bagley. They were all in. They were ready to go. They said, "Let's start the Marvin Bagley era in Sacramento." Now, give me Marvin Bagley. I don't even know. I still haven't given up. He might come up later. Who knows?